Oh, laws of nature's God, laws of nature. Laws of nature. Our Constitution of the United States is a significant slice of the laws of nature as applied to government. Let's look at it. We're on question 188, left off yesterday, Stansbury's commentary on, or Catechism on the Constitution of the United States. Question: how many of these electors of the president are appointed in each state? Remember, we said that the president of the United States is not elected by a popular majority. Why? Our common law tradition is not about majorities. Our common law tradition is about minorities, the remnant, the leftovers. Our common law tradition at all costs, listen to me, our common law tradition, which is in the Bible is part of the law of the land, both of them at all cost protect the leftovers, the minority, the remnants, the nobodies. Why? Because the truth is always in the minority, always. You show me the majority. If there's truth in the majority, it's just a happenstance. It won't last. You say, well, we elected DJ Trump for president. He got more votes than anybody else. Yeah, he did. Will that last? Listen, if you think DJ Trump is right-headed, I do. I think he's right-headed. Not right about everything, but he's got his nose pointed in the right direction. And there's a big rah, rah, rah in the majority about it and say, oh, yeah, we love him and all that. How long is that going to last? I mean, if Jesus Christ, God in human flesh, reduced to the span of a man, enters Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, and people are crying, Hosanna, the King, and they're throwing down palm branches, taking off their coats, throwing down, and he's riding on this little jackass, and so the jackass doesn't have to walk on the dirt. I mean, they were all for him. Within a very, very, very short period of time, what were they doing? They were screaming, crucify him, crucify him. Remember the Judaites, the Jews had rabble-roused the crowd to want to kill him. That's politics, friends. That is politics. That's the way politics works. And it's our job. We're popular one day, and we're not, that won't last, then you're not popular. But you can't change, or you won't change. God won't let you change. God will work his work through you. You are salt and light. Jesus Christ didn't change. They were saying, rah, 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 Hosanna the King, and then they were screaming for his death, but not only death, but death by the most cruel torture you can imagine. That's called, Miss Francine, I'll tell you what that's called. That's called feckless fickleness. Miss Francine likes feckless. I've liked it. I liked it too. Feckless fickleness. And that's what men by nature are. What they're committed to one minute, they'll hate the next. You never know when that's going to happen. Well, you are salt and light. You are, and you ain't going to be. God has made you what you are, and you ain't going to change, friends. And the world will hate you. Oh, yeah. Be not amazed, brethren. The world hates you. The world hates you because it hates me, said Jesus Christ. And it hates you because I chose you. I plucked you. I took you out from among those other people in the world. So they hate you for it. But you are salt and light. Rejoice and be glad when you're persecuted, Jesus Christ said in the Sermon on the Mount. Rejoice and be glad when you're persecuted for being what you are. Christian men and women, when people don't like you, when they make fun of you. Because you're really trying to do what you want to do, what God wants you to do. Oh, he'll make you want to, but first you've got to know, yes, who you are. How many of these electors of president are appointed in each state? as many as the state has members in both houses of Congress. As many as the state has members in both houses of Congress. For instance, when I was running for Congress, the state of Wyoming didn't have enough people in it to rate the full complement of even one congressman. Wyoming had more senators than they had congressmen. And I think that's still true, by the way. I haven't checked. I got out of politics and don't pay much attention. But they had more senators than congressmen. Every state gets 2 senators. They only had 1 congressman. Okay. So how many electors does Wyoming get? Or what are they entitled to vote for president? 3. They've got 2 senators in the U.S. Senate and 1 congressman. Okay, they get 3. What about Illinois? I don't know how many congressmen Illinois has, or California. California has lost congressional districts, I think, but Illinois, they had something like 22 back when Wyoming had 1. So Illinois has 22 congressmen and 2 U.S. senators. So they would get how many electors? 24. They're entitled to 24. Wyoming's entitled to 3. So if you have 10 congressmen in your state, you're entitled to 12 electors. I just take the number of congressmen you have, House of Representatives, and add 2, because there are 2 senators in every state. That's how many electors you're to put in place, choose in your state to choose the President of the United States. For instance, a state which is entitled to 2 senators and 8 members of the House of Representatives must appoint 10 electors for president. A state which has 2 senators and 20 members of the House Representatives must appoint 22 electors, and on and on and on for all 50 states. Question 189. May any person they please be appointed as elector? Answer. Not every person. Senators of the United States, members of the House of Representatives, and all persons who hold any office of trust or profit under the United States are incapable of being electors for president. So if you're already a congressman, U.S. congressman, or a U.S. senator, or the president or the vice president, you can't run for elector. Question 191. Well, no, why? 190. Why is this true? For fear that a president of the United States might use improper means to get himself chosen again when his time of service should expire. The president has frequent opportunities to see the members of Congress and persuade them. And as he himself has the appointment of most persons to hold offices, he might threaten to remove or promise to keep them in their places and thus destroy their freedom of election. He has too much influence and power as president, too much candy to hand out. He's the sugar daddy. And he can promise this and withhold that from a state, or if you don't vote for me, that kind of thing. When I was a senior in high school, I ran for class president. And Sarah Jane Johnson, friend, Sarah Jane's father delivered me. Her father was the doctor in town. He delivered me when I was born, Eugene, and we were friends throughout our lives. When I ran for office, he was the head of the state medical doctors association, and he talked them into throwing their weight behind me. But Sarah Jane ran for class president, and I ran. I've never said this in public, but it was my conviction at that time that I didn't tell anybody about it, just thought about it. It was my conviction at that time that it would be wrong for me to even vote if I'm running for president or run a class president. And I didn't vote. Now, I'm not saying I was right, but that's what happened. Sarah Jane won by 1 vote. I'm kind of glad now because when we have class reunions, I don't feel any responsibility to organize them. Sarah Jane does, and she does a good job. Well, not like there were that many votes. I mean, we didn't have that big a graduating class. It's pretty small. It covered a lot of area outside of town. The town was small, but it covered a large geographic area. Well, let's go to the next question. The president has frequent opportunities to see the members of Congress and persuade them. Because they're always jockeying. The president is the executive branch, and they're he's jockeying with the congressman. They're trying to persuade him to not veto their legislation, and all that goes on. The president has frequent opportunity, yes. And he himself has the appointment of most persons who hold offices in the executive branch. He might threaten to remove or promise to keep them in their place and thus destroy the freedom of election. 191. How do these presidential electors proceed? Remember, to keep in mind, there's a movement afoot to get rid of this process, to change our Constitution of the United States, to make the president elected by popular vote, just popular vote. And as we had said yesterday, if we do that, the urban areas, the cities, will always choose the president of the United States. That's why they put this system of you can go and vote for president, and the reason you do that is because you make what you want, your wishes known. That's what the presidential election is all about. It doesn't elect the president, you see. Well, Trump got 55% of the vote. That doesn't elect him. That does not elect him. And the folks that ratified our Constitution set it up that way so that the cities would not crush the rural areas of flyover America. Hillary Clinton ran for president. Bill Clinton ran. Obama ran. They took all the urban areas. The urban areas are a block of voters that always vote for the law of the city principles. What's the law of the city principles? The law of the city principles is we give to each group and each person, we promise them what they want. They will all want different things. The law of the land says no. You should all want the big thing that controls everything. Make America great again. That's why that was a great slogan. Where did he get it? Where did he get it? He got it from Germany. Adolf Hitler, his slogan was make Germany great again. Did it work? Yeah, it worked. They said, we're pulling it in. We're not going to bother anybody else. We're going to concentrate on getting our economy back up. And during the Depression, they did it. They were the most prosperous nation in the world. Why? Because they quit trying to prop up everybody else and paid attention to their own business and got serious about it. Oh, I know it's spun out of control for other reasons, but fundamentally, if we don't take care of ourselves first, we can't help anybody else. And how long can we continue to give away trillions of dollars to people that don't produce anything? The Democrats are the unaccountable crowd. Unaccountable. There are only two crowds in politics, the accountable crowd and the unaccountable crowd. The left is promoting unaccountability. We just want to give people goodies and money. Oh, you want this for yourself? You want that? You want this? We'll promise you, each one of you, and you all can vote for us for different reasons. That's the unaccountable crowd. They get the handouts. And it's not just the welfare recipients that you think are down in the lower echelon. That's not it. The farmers in America, the smallest farmers in my part of the world, some of them, just a normal sized farmer gets $1 million a year not to farm some of his land. That's called unaccountability. If you fail at farming, if the weather doesn't cooperate, you go down. That's why you drive around the Midwest now. Get this is how we've changed, and this is why. The Roosevelt set-aside program, and the new, we call it the New Deal, then it goes into the Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson thought he was a protege of FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He even tried to look like him, wear the same kind of glasses and all that baloney. When he used to get up in front of, we'd watch him in front of Congress. my fellow Americans and all that baloney. He's a scoundrel. But he told the farmers, I'll give you money too, just like FDR told them. But then he said, I'll give you even more. You set aside your land and not farm it. We'll pay you a guaranteed payment for what you'd have made if you did farm it. You don't have to worry about the weather wiping out your crop. You don't have to worry about the corn blight wiping out your crop. The crud that we used to call it, corn. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You're going to get your money. It's not crop insurance. We're just going to give you money for not farming your land because we've got an overabundance of grain. And if we don't cut back on the grain, the price is going to continue to drop. That wasn't true. None of that's true. It's all baloney. It's just, how do you get people to keep supporting the Democrats? And I found out when I was in politics, friends, listen to me. I found out when I was in politics, I'm from farm country. And I was ever wanting to support a farmer. I found out I was supporting people that were high-class welfare recipients, and I don't mean a little bit. Then the internet came out, and I could go to the internet and see how much money they were getting, each one of them. It knocked me over backwards. I can't believe this. No wonder this guy doesn't raise cattle and hogs and chickens anymore. See, people used to, it's terrible what's happened. Why is corn king in the Midwest? Because everything's guaranteed. Used to be, you'd plant corn, you'd plant some soybeans, you'd plant some wheat, you'd plant a little bit of everything. And you'd rotate your crops around. Some you'd put in alfalfa, some in red top clover, you'd bale hay, and of course you kept cattle. Why? In case the crop failed, that's why. And you kept hogs, why? In case you don't get any money to buy groceries, you've always got some meat in the smokehouse, that's why. And you raised a garden, why? Because if everything goes south and you go bankrupt because the crops fail, they won't give you anything for it. You've got some canned goods put up. You got some hogs around you can shoot and butcher once in a while, maybe some calves. And you got eggs you can feed your face, ham and eggs. You got chickens. Used to say, where I was from, you couldn't drive up and down the road without running over a chicken. Chickens were everywhere. Everybody had lots of chickens. Everybody sold eggs. Everybody. And everybody had a few head of cattle. Everybody had hogs. None of that anymore. You go by the farms today and drive around through the countryside, you got these old barns they paint up. They got a lot of them, keep them all painted nice. No cattle, no horses, no hogs, no chickens, no mud in the driveway, just giant farm machinery. And they get the crop in, don't even have to tend the crop because of herbicide. Get it out, and then they run to Florida or Brownsville, Texas to spend the winter instead of tending hogs and cattle all winter. Why? Because the government is giving them money. That's why. The freedom to fail doesn't exist anymore. They're the unaccountable crowd. They don't have to make a good crop. If they don't want to, they get paid either way. That's called unaccountability. There are two kinds of people in America, two mindsets, the accountable crowd and the unaccountable crowd. The unaccountable crowd gets paid whether they produce anything or not. Yeah. How do these electors proceed? The electors appointed by each state meet in the states that appointed them. So the President of the United States is, they hold a national election. They can tell what the national feeling is. Then you just vote and make your will known. And the electors then know kind of what the feeling is in their state, who supports who for president. The electors meet in each state appointed, and they vote by ballot for the president, whatever president they choose, and for another officer called the vice president of the United States. The electors all meet on one and the same day in every state, all at the same time, on the day Congress has fixed. Why? Well, they don't want them to meet at different times. So this state over here, their electors vote and they choose this guy for president. And then this state says, well, we see which way the wind's blowing. It's going to help us. They try to jockey and manipulate for reasons, who knows why, but they want them to all do it at the same time so they won't influence one another. They, the ratifiers, and I like that too. I like that too. What do you mean by voting by ballot? Voting by ballot. When it is wished to conceal a matter in which each particular person voted, and yet to know what is the opinion of all the voters, instead of speaking their minds, each put a piece of folded paper into a box, and these papers are called ballots. And when they have voted, these ballots are examined and counted. Now, here's what we're going to do. Trusting Miss Francine's still with us. I think she is. Miss Francine, if you'd play us a song, and then
all right,
we'll come back and tell you the history of ballots and really what they are and why we call them that. Law that has a lawgiver, by the way, which is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he's delivered his laws to us in two forms: the laws of nature, our common law tradition, of which our Constitution of the United States is a significant slice, and the laws of nature's God. What is a ballot? Now, there are three branches in common law tradition. There are three branches of government, and they're co-equal. Neither one of those branches trumps the other one. The Supreme Court of the United States is the judicial branch. What the Supreme Court says does not have any fundamental authority to order the commandeer of the president or anybody else in the other branches of government. That's how a common law government works. Do we want the Supreme Court to deliver their, watch this word, opinion? It's an opinion, friends. It's not a command. We call it an opinion. In our common law tradition, say, well, what's the findings of the court? What's the opinion of the court? If you're in the military, if you're in the armed forces, you say, well, what the old man, what's the command? What's the order of the day? What do we got to do? That's different. See, that's martial law. Well, we'll talk more about that in the course. Please take the course. Well, the political branch of government in our common law tradition is the legislative branch. Remember, our Constitution of the United States, at the national level and at the state level, the constitutions that create a legislative, an executive, and a judicial branch, and they're each co-equal. None of them are on top of the other and have no authority to command the other, although they agree very often, and we want to follow what the Supreme Court says if the president should follow it, but obviously he's at odds with what the legislature says, and they're suing him in the courts over things. Right now, that's been going on since the beginning of our country. If we can find a way to agree, great, but often we can't. And every man in government is bound by his oath to support and defend the Constitution as he understands it. There's no other way to take an oath. I mean, I wouldn't take an oath to say, well, I support to defend the Constitution as the Supreme Court of the United States understands it. I'm not going to swear an oath like that because I've found, of course, it's easy to see. They don't know what they're talking about half the time. They're just delivering opinions. Why would I swear to uphold what they say? No, that's not what that oath is about. That oath is about oaths are personal. Swearing is a personal matter, friends. Well, what's a ballot? B-A-L-L-O-O-T. Let's start with the etymology of the word. It's a Greek word, Greek. It's in the New Testament. We get our word ball, B-A-L-L. The word ball and the word ballot are the same root word in the Greek tongue. What is a ball? What is a ballot? Why'd they call it a ballot? Well, because it looked like a ball when they first started using them. What were they? They were little round rocks, little stones, polished stones, round, relatively round, smooth, as we would say, a smooth stone. Remember David. He whooped that giant, Goliath. He was 9.5 feet tall. Goliath was 9.5 feet tall. Go do the math. He whipped him. Knocked him flatter than a flitter. And then while he was knocked out on the ground, he pulled out his giant claymore, that's a broadsword, and he chopped his head off, stood on top of him. The boy stood on top of him with his sword, then got down. He was knocked out, hit him right in his forehead with a what? A smooth stone. The Bible says he picked up 5 smooth stones from the creek bed as he walked over on the other side. The creek ran between the two armies, and he stopped and picked up, well, here's 5 smooth stones. Why are they smooth? Well, I can tell you why, because I used to have one of those slingshots. I used to make them when I was a kid. My brother and I, we got pretty good at them. And if your stone you put in a slingshot wasn't smooth, you couldn't be very accurate, because there's angular parts of the stone. As it flies through the air, it spins, and that makes it leave either slice off one way or the other. So when a man uses, a boy like David used a sling, he didn't like this, not like this. He didn't have rubber, so we had rubber. See, we could put rubber strings on there, and whoo! He used centrifugal force like this, and then let go one side, and a smooth stone would fly. But if a stone wasn't smooth, it wouldn't fly, so it had to be smooth. That's why bullets, until very recently, were called balls. Balls. And during the war between the states, they called them balls, and they were round. They were lead shot. Balls. And then when you loaded a black powder pistol, you loaded balls in the revolver and clamped them down in there tight on top of a Navy revolver, horse pistol. They were balls. And why were they balls? Because a ball is symmetrical and it will fly straight to where you point it. You ever watch football players, the old quarterback, get the ball, back up, and he'd throw it, and because it's symmetrical, it's not lopsided, when he throws it, it spins, and centrifugal force keeps it flying straight. That's why rifles have those lands and grooves on the inside of the barrel, so that when the projectile comes out, it's like a football. It's got a spin on it, and that helps it fly even straighter. Muskets don't have that, but still, the ball will fly straighter. Well, that's why we call them balls, and ballots are little round. Originally, were little round stones, and there were 2 kinds. There were black stones and white stones. Black stones and white stones. Now, the word ball or balos. Well, here's another one. It's all over the Southern European languages. When I was a boy, we made what we called bolas. Bola. Kind of sounds like ball. What's a bola? Well, it has 3 little sacks of sand tied to 3 cords that were connected in the middle, 3 of them. And we did this. We learned how to do this. It was fun for boys. You got 3 sacks of sand, leather sacks, not very big, about as big as your fist, and they're attached to the end of leather cords. And those 3 leather cords are attached in the middle. And each one of those cords going out is the same length. You pick up one, and the other 2 are hanging down. And you start swinging around your head like this. And you get close to a calf. They're pretty long. You get close to a calf or a steer, and you throw that at the legs of the animal while they're running, and it'll wrap around the legs if it hits right, and the animal will go down, and then you can rope him. That's called a bola. It's a Spanish word, bola, related to the Greek word ball, bolos. Well, if you put it in the verb form, it becomes things like, well, they had a word that was like ball that was the verb form. It meant to throw. A ball was made to throw. And early ballots were in the Greek world. We're talking a few thousand years ago. And if they had a question, they wanted it decided, they'd say, okay, everybody's going to come by, and we're going to find out what people are thinking. There's a black ball and a white ball. A black ball means no. A black stone means no. And a white stone means yes. Now, here's the genius of voting. The genius of voting is it's a simple decision. Voting is designed to be simple, not complicated. In other words, you only got 2 choices. Yes or no, yay or nay, up or down, in or out, black or white stone. If you wanted to say no to what was proposed, you threw in a black stone into a box. You filed by and you dropped in a black stone. If you filed by and dropped in a white stone, that meant yes. Then they'd take the stones out and they'd count them, all the ballots. They end up calling them ballots. The word ball, little round stones. They count the stones for yes and the stones for no. That's called a secret ballot. If we're in a meeting of people and we say all the greens say yay, and you take the yays, then oppose, nay, and take the nays, that's not secret, that's public. Everybody knows what you've said. This is secret ballot. And we have taken that idea and said, well, we're going to put it on a piece of paper and then throw the paper in there. We still call it a ballot. It's something you throw in the box, the ballot box, you see. A box, a piece of paper where you've made your wishes known. I had two granddads when growing up, worked in an oil field. I say two. And great granddad and granddad. And dad did too. My great granddad was involved in he would work got his paycheck from what became a large oil company. Still is yet today. And, but he worked in a small place locally and he was in production. That means he'd go out of a morning and make sure all the pumps were running. The pumps ran on natural gas coming out of the well. There was no electricity. They're all electricity now, but they weren't then. He fired up the little one-lunger pumps that was sitting on the pump jack. And the oil around home was shallow. I mean, we had wells there not more than 125 feet deep. Some 3, 4, 5, 1,500 feet deep too, different pay zones. But the early stuff was still there and still producing, amazingly. And would continue to because of geological reasons I'd probably go into now. But they're still producing, by the way, a lot, those shallow wells. But he had a job there for years, and it was a good paycheck. Oil field jobs were good, but he had the tough job of going out and actually tending to the wells and the powerhouse and firing up the big motor in the giant one-lunger in the powerhouse. Had rod lines going out to the different pumps, did it that way. It was hard work, but he had a good job. Even when times were tough, he had a good job. And my other granddad worked as a driller and opened up a few fields. He grew up in the oil field when it first started, back about the turn of the last century, 1900. He knew what he was doing, but neither one of them were able to go up in the hierarchy of whatever was there. They couldn't. Why? My granddad said, well, because I got blackballed. I didn't know what that meant. What does that mean? Well, that means they took a consensus of all the guys there to see if they want to let him go, advance and get more pay. And they, as it were, would say yes or no, either a black stone or a white stone. Now, I don't think that they probably actually threw a stone into a box, but the saying blackballed came from the ancient Greek world where people and ideas would get blackballed. They get more black balls thrown in the box than white balls. Well, my granddad would get blackballed. Why? And here's the reason why, just a side note. He wasn't a Freemason. He wasn't a Mason. He didn't belong to the Masonic Lodge. Neither one of them did. And they both got blackballed. And in the oil field, the Masonic Lodge is powerful. Very powerful. You know, I find it fascinating today. You go to towns that were oil boom towns, like that town where I went to high school. That town got big when the oil boom came many decades ago. And there's always a lot of, in towns like that, there's always a big Masonic Lodge and a lot of other secret organizations as well. And that's true also not only of oil boom towns, but mining towns. I go to California. I go up and down the gold country. Route 49 runs up north and south along the Sierra foothills. You go to every little old mining town in California, the biggest building downtown is the Masonic Lodge. Masonic Lodge. Why is that? And the Odd Fellows and other secret organizations. Well, the reason is because men that get caught up in the rushes of minerals and oil, which are the same thing, both minerals. They usually end up going there without their families, and they don't have any protection. It's pretty lawless in a lot of those places. They had no protection. If anything happened to them, they didn't have anybody committed to them that would take care of them. So they joined those kind of organizations so that their lodge brothers would look after them if they were injured or killed, or their families needed to be brought there, or they needed to be sent to their families. The men would pitch in together. It was in the union world of labor, unions claim to do that. I don't think they do it very much, but they claim that, oh, they'll help you, they say. But in the mineralized world of raw mineral production, the lodges became important, and that's not good. It's always, but that was the good thing they did. But at the same time, if you didn't join up with certain ones, they'd blackball you. That's true. Wasn't always right that happened. Well, that's what voting is. Voting is either yay or nay, up or down. It's always simple. Well, either this guy or that guy. And in our two-party system, it's either this guy or that guy. That's the only meaningful choice you have. If you vote for the third-party candidates, you probably won't get anywhere. Should we have third-party candidates? Oh, yeah, you got to have them, because when the parties fall apart, like the Democratic Party now has fallen, they've just fallen plumb apart. They're getting annihilated. They don't have anything to say. Everything they do, they're the unaccountable crowd. All they promote is unaccountability, see. And that's not productive. That is non-productive. We'll give you a government job. We'll send you a check, a welfare check to the farmer or to the poor man, the wino on the street. We'll give you a new cell phone. We'll do this. We'll do that for you, and you will do this, and you will do that. It's always just sugar daddy. And there's no accountability. That's not good. It doesn't work. It destroys. No question. But that's what the meaning of ballot is. Well, let's go to the laws. The laws of nature's God. The Bible. Chapter 21 of Exodus. Chapter 21 of Exodus. Miss Francine, I just feel like hearing another song. Would that be a good idea? You have one there? Maybe she's not even there. Either that or she's frantically looking for the button, but I can't believe she lost it. See how Miss Francine takes care of all the technical stuff? And so she's got a lot to do. Don't think she's there just sitting, waiting for me to say, oh, play a song. No, she's watching everything. She's cognizant of what's going on. And I want you to join that course we're taking, because when you join, it supports us in what we're doing. And God promises a blessing to you if you support people that are purveying the will of God, the word of God, the laws of nature, and the laws of nature's God. And it would be a travesty for me to not tell you that you are forfeiting blessing if you don't join with those who you believe are propagating God's word, his will, his things. If you believe that's what's happening here, and if you're getting something out of it, then the Word of God says, the Bible says, that God will bring blessing to you if you join us in that as partners and help us. And not only just help us, but we want to give you more. We want to give you that course. And with that course, you also get that comparative law text in digital form. 958 pages in digital form, because that comes with the course. I have some reading assignments. We're not going to read the whole book. I want you to read some things that I think are important. We're going to try to do it in 12 weeks. 12 weeks. Try. Meet once a week. You can see me on the internet. I can't see you, but we're going to put them all in the can, as all our courses are in the can, audio and visual. And you can go back, take the courses. It's all there. And get a certificate of completion of each course. And then if you complete all the courses, and we've got enough courses now, Miss Francine, we need to grant people the opportunity to get a certificate saying that a graduation certificate that they took all the courses. I do this as a lawyer. I have to, oh, well, yeah, they require me to take continuing courses constantly. I just finished some. I'm teaching the courses that I should have been taught in law school and wasn't. I'm also teaching the courses that I was taught in law school, and I'm glad that they taught them. But there's some that they should have. You can't teach everything. But we're teaching courses that should be taught. For example, comparative law, comparing the law of the land with the law of the city. For example, the sheriff at common law, Sheriff Darleaf and I taught that course. For example, the power of the sheriff, the posse comitatus, the power, that's Latin for possibility, possible power of the county. What is the posse? Well, it's the militiamen at the county level. And then the course we taught, the most popular one we've taught has been the 4 militia clauses of our U.S. Constitution. How do they work? The militia of the several states. Sheriff Darleaf and I taught that one. I should have been taught those in law school and wasn't. We could teach a course on hermeneutics, but right now just need to. Oh, we did teach a course on Christian nationalism. We just finished that one, Christian nationalism. What is it? Is it a good idea? Are we a Christian nation? Should we be? How do you become a Christian nation? By the way, friends, the way you become a Christian nation is what you are by the providence of God. It's not something you do. Primarily, you must understand first, well, who am I? Because if you understand who you are, if you understand what our country is, then everything will be done. It's going to happen. But first, you must know it. You just must know who you are and who your nation is.